Welcome to the Cowboy Podcast, where talk is all about the West. This episode is brought to you by White Stallion Ranch and produced by Cowboy Spirit USA. Cowboy Boots, the footwear of cowboys, equestrians, and fashionistas. Who designed the first pair of boots, and how did they become the standard Western footwear? Zach Lawless, CEO of Hyer Boots, joins Russell and Elm to answer these questions and more.
Morning, Alan. Looks like when you walked in here, there might have been a new set of cowboy boots on. What's going on?
Well, fairly new. I bought them last October, but as little or as much as I wear boots anymore, they're almost new. But there was a time in my life when that's about all I wore. So anyway, I'm tickled to be talking today about cowboy boots and what they are, what they mean to all of us, and how we wear them.
Well, I wear the same model boot from a brand that isn't relevant today, and they quit making them, so I'm going to have to learn a lot from Zach. We've got Zach Lawless. He's the CEO of Hyer, Hyer Boots. Just took over the helm last year in 2022. This is the historic brand, the beginnings of boots, as I understand. It's great to have you with us, Zach. Welcome.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you.
Well, I'm excited. Everybody I know, cowboy boots are a part of their life, and usually a big part. And I never have really known where they came from or any part of the history, and so I'm tickled to have you on the broadcast today because your roots go real deep in the boots.
Yeah, no, definitely. My great grandfather is accredited with inventing the cowboy boot, and I always tell people that there's plenty of things he could have invented that probably nobody would care about today, but cowboy boots have such a interesting part in Western culture and just in really people's day-to-day lives, and there's not many things that people put up on the mantle in their household, and so the fact that he invented the cowboy boot is a pretty interesting one for sure.
Well, way back when, before cowboy boots were invented in prehistory, what did cowboys and ranch people wear? I'd like to know.
Yeah, Hyer Boots, we were credited with inventing the cowboy boot in 1875. And that was kind of really during those long-haul cattle drives from Texas all the way up to Kansas. And prior to that, or what the majority of people were wearing before that, was the old Civil War boots. So about 75 was when a lot of those boots were definitely really worn out, and they didn't have a toe that was appropriate for riding, and they didn't have a raised heel. A number of boot makers at that time were inventing other boots. There were similar boots that were coming onto the market, like the Coffeyville boot and things like that just didn't have the characteristics we know today as the cowboy boot, which are the raised heel, the pointed toe, and the scalloped tops.
So, you mentioned a few, including the Civil War boots and everything pre-1875. Were those lace-ups? Or were there also pull-ons?
No, they were mostly pull-ons. In fact, the main boots, so Civil War boots were the main ones. If you were going to go get a custom-made boot, it was the Hessing boot or a Wellington. And the Hessing is the Hessing is still used today in like marching bands. It's those boots with like the tassel on the front of it. So that was kind of one of the primary boots for cowboys at that time, and then obviously the Wellington as well.
Because of course, I personally, I'm amazed when I see there was a huge fad for a while where cowgirls around were wearing these Packer boots that were lace ups, and one of the critical features of a cowboy boot, as we know them, is the slip off. Slip on's nice, slip off might save your life.
Exactly.
But you're saying some of those boots prior to your 1875 version were slip-on off.
Yeah, and I've tried to do as much research into the area as I can. There's really about 3 authors that cover cowboy boots and the history of cowboy boots. And from what I've seen in reading those books, the majority of people who were writing at that time were not wearing lace-ups. They were wearing slip-on, slip-offs, that Hessing boot or the Wellington. And a lot of obviously the people in America were wearing kind of the remnants of the Civil War boots.
So is it safe to say that the cowboy boot kind of put an end to the Civil War? Is that stretching a point, or it seems like that kind of coincides?
Yeah, that might be stretching a little bit, but we could use that in some of the marketing and branding as well.
It just occurred to me that I had that in common.
So
yeah,
tell us.
I was gonna say, a lot of the drivers for those long haul cattle days, which kind of brought in that golden age of cowboying, those were like issues from the Civil War, right? The difference in price from cattle in the South up to the North, So I guess there's definitely remnants of the Civil War that lived on into those early days of cowboying for sure.
Well, a lot of the historians talk about how the end of the Civil War had a huge impact on the West in terms of sending cavalry out to deal with some of the Indian challenges and also just people coming west after that whole thing. But tell us about the Hyer family and how you said great-great-grandfather, I think. So tell us about the family and your connection and how it works.
So for the history for Hyer Boots, it was my great-great-grandfather, a guy by the name of C.H. Hyer, who not only started the company, but invented the cowboy boot. So if you type in Google who invented the cowboy boot, you'll see his face pop up, which I've been told is my doppelganger, and I think that might actually be an insult, but it works with the story, so I'm going with it. But yeah, so he moved actually to a town called Olathe, Kansas, and was teaching shoe and last making at the School of Deaf and Blind, actually. He opened up a storefront along the Santa Fe Trail to help the students make a little bit of extra income and also to make a little bit of extra income himself. The story goes that a cowboy came into the shop and said, "Make me the finest pair of boots for my job. I don't care what the cost is." And that's when C.H. Hyer went to work, and he built the boots so that they had a pointed toe to get in and out of the stirrups really easily, a raised heel to hold into the stirrups, and the scalloped tops to make it easier to walk while also protecting you while you're riding. And so that was enough to probably make the Hyer Boot Company a pretty well-known boot company. But he was a very innovative man and didn't stop at just inventing the cowboy boot. We were the first, or if not the first, one of the first to start producing the mail order catalog. So the first, I guess you could say, direct consumer boot of sorts. We invented the fork construction for the pull tabs that we know today, and a number of the other inventions. In fact, one of those authors I was telling you about that writes about the boots claimed that we were one of the first to start using the assembly line in our manufacturing. So all of this really led to us being the largest boot manufacturer in the United States up until about the 1920s. So when people think about the 5 boot companies that really started the Western industry, they think of Justin Lucchese, Tony Lama, Nakona, and Hyer. But Hyer was actually the biggest of all of them in the early days of the boot company, in the boot industry. But we often get forgot a little bit in history because, well, my family lost the boot company in 71. And then in about the mid 80s was the last time anyone ever made a boot with a Hyer name on it. And so we kind of got lost in time a little bit, but I got the trademark back in March of last year, and we're relaunching the boot company and doing it as a family business once again.
What prompted you to get back in? Was it just the history that you share about with your family?
It's actually kind of it's kind of a funny story because when we lost the boot company, we didn't really lose it in a good way. So it became something that my family didn't really talk about very much. So I grew up knowing that my grandmother, or knowing that my great-great-grandfather invented the cowboy boot, but it was kind of something like you didn't really believe. We'd show up to Thanksgiving and grandmother would be like, we invented the cowboy boot, and everybody around the Thanksgiving table would be like, yeah, sure, Grandma, we invented the cowboy boot. See you at Christmas, But but about 4 years ago, my grandfather actually passed away. He was the last CEO of the boot company, and we were moving my grandmother into a retirement home. I was going through a bunch of boxes in the basement, and I uncovered this box in the basement, and the top picture was actually a picture of Calvin Coolidge dedicating Mount Rushmore in a pair of Hyer boots. And I was like, well, this is cool. And as I went through the box, I realized that it was all the stuff that my grandmother had collected from the factory when we lost it in '71. And there was just so many amazing things. There was a pamphlet that talked about all of the famous people who wore it, everyone from outlaws like Billy the Kid and Jesse James to Buffalo Bill Cody and Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable and Larry Mahan and Loretta Lynn. And the list kind of went on and all these Western icons that I'd always heard stories about. And so obviously my interest was piqued, and I went up to talk to my grandmother, and it was as if she'd been waiting 50 years for somebody to ask her that question. So it was a moment where it was a really tough time for my grandmother, and just talking to her about Hyer Boots made her really excited. So that was actually in October, and on the way home, I remember telling my girlfriend at the time, my fiance now, that I wanted to get the trademark back in the family by Christmas and give it to my grandmother as a Christmas present. So that was actually the reason I started off on this journey.
So you're the lead person to get the family back in the boot business. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's a fair statement. So I don't think many people in my family even really knew the extent of the boot company until I started diving into it.
And so you said you had to get the trademark back. So somebody had that, and then aside from that, which carries with it this amazing history that you've talked about, everybody from Larry Mahan to President Coolidge and everybody in between. And, I've been to the website, and it's amazing. So in my understanding, basically, once you had the trademark, you had the family heritage back, but then you've got to create a new company from
and
one.
I was like, it's step one for sure. And as I told you, the original idea wasn't necessarily even to relaunch the company. I really wanted to get back in the family for my grandmother at the time, and I thought it was going to be something where I tracked down the trademark and tell them the story, and they're going to be so excited for me that I got it, that they're going to give me back the trademark. And it didn't work out that way, because I tracked the trademark down to a very large company, and that company I called and told them the story, and they weren't as interested in the story as I was. So
I wonder why.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I was persistent. I called them every Wednesday for 18 months, and basically they realized that they weren't going to get rid of me until they gave me back the trademark. So they dropped the trademark in early last year, and I picked it up, and that's kind of been the beginning of it ever since. And like I said, I wasn't necessarily planning on starting a boot company, and in a weird twist of fate, I'd never worked in the fashion industry before, but in a weird twist of fate, I got a call from somebody about 6 days after I got the trademark back, and they asked me if they could buy it. They were a designer for a brand called Filson, and they wanted to start a cowboy boot company. And so I told them that I wasn't interested in selling it, but if they could tell me what their vision was for the brand, that I'd be interested in maybe going in on it with them. And so that was weird, because that was about 6 days after I got the trademark back, and since then I've never had another person call. So it was almost like fate was like, you know what, you got it back, and now you got to do something with it.
Where do you produce them now?
We're producing them in North America. We say we're manufactured in North America. So the majority of our product comes from Leon, but we are producing products out of El Paso, Texas as well.
And you have a manufacturing plant in El Paso?
Yeah, well, we're working with a manufacturer who's got a few different plants in El Paso.
Yeah. So things are things are on the upswing. You're getting name recognition back and getting in the market.
Yeah, that's kind of been one of the most amazing parts about this whole thing is that we went to the NFR and put up a booth at NFR to let people know that we were coming back. And the amount of people that stopped by our booth that remembered Hyer Boots was just incredible. I mean, we had a guy come up to us who said he buried his dad in a pair of Hyer Boots. We had a bunch of old rodeo athletes who came over and said that their boots are either on the mantle or like Chad Berger had his in the Cowboy Hall of Fame. So we realized that we're on the process of rebuilding the brand recognition for sure, but to see that there's still so many people that remember the name and cherish the brand, and it was really heartwarming.
Well, and going to the NFR was a great idea. I'm unclear. Are the boots available yet, or is that coming up?
That's coming up. So we are going to be showcasing our line at the American here in March, and then we're going to be having limited styles available from May to July, and then in August we'll have our full line available, and we'll be in retailers.
And do you have? Because what I know about boot making isn't much. Do you have access to some of the old styles, or is that something that isn't necessary and you're starting from scratch on that?
No, we have access to a lot of the old styles, right? So, like I said in the beginning, we were one of the first to ever have a mail order catalog. So we have been photographing and documenting our line of products since 1889. So we can go back into the archives really like almost no other brand around and kind of see what's around. So almost everything, especially on these first line of products, I'd say everything in these first line of products are inspired by designs of the past. And then on top of it as well, there's the form that is made, that the shoe is made around.
Right.
That last, we recovered thousands of lasts and kind of, I guess, re-engineered what the shape of those lasts, and then kind of engineered it even further towards kind of what are the changes in people's feet from then to today. So we took inspiration really from everything that Hyer did in the past and then brought it into a modern context.
What's your next step? Are you going to go retail? Are you?
He said that.
You'll be in stores. Where will somebody be able to buy your boot?
Yeah, we'll be in retailers. I mean, we're targeting the majority of our distribution to go through retailers. Our full goal as a company is to support the retailers. Shoes are something that you really need to be able to try on, and there's such a strong relationship between the customers and the retailers that are established. And so we really want to come in and build a brand that can help support the retailers and something where customers can come in and try the boots on and have a really positive experience to learn about the history and see the product.
Well, we've got to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Well, once again, this program of the Cowboy Up podcast is brought to you by Cowboy Spirit USA, which is a department of my own company, What It Takes Radio. The What It Takes Radio company is here for this reason, and that's to put good people and good programs on the air to inspire a little bit more hope in the world today. And so we'd be grateful if you are in the mood to perhaps thinking it's time to have a program of wisdom, insight, and truth, some storytelling, and some adventure, just good things. We'd encourage you to be in touch with us at witradio.net. Witradio.net. Please be in touch with me. Right now, I'm looking for a program that would be about many of the ancient guns and firearms of the frontier days. That was part of the story. Something like frontier firearms. So if you know somebody who could put on that kind of a program, we'd love to hear from you. And we also are going to be putting on a program about that iconic place, Tombstone, Arizona. Just a story a montage of stories and people who are fascinated by the legend of Tombstone, Arizona. Those are programs we have planned for 2023, and we have a few more that are part of Cowboy Spirit USA. So if you know somebody who would like to be a part of that radio effort to, you might say, preserve Western civilization by preserving the Western tradition, we'd love to hear from you. Once again, my name is Stan Houston of What It Takes Radio, the What It Takes Radio Company, witradio.net, or you can reach out to me at stan@witradio.net. Indeed, it's time for 23 to be the time for thee to be on the radio.
Before we talk about the boots, I want to go back. I have a question. This started with a box in your grandmother's home with photos with President Coolidge, etc. Where were the thousands of lasts, and where were the archives with all the mail order catalogs? Where was that held?
So the lasts were spread out throughout the family. So I guess my grandfather my great-grandfather had a property in Olathe, Kansas, and in the barn in the back, there were just hundreds and hundreds of lasts. Over time, people in the family grabbed a few and things of that nature, but we got probably a few thousand from that barn, and then we were able to go and kind of collect throughout the rest of the family between Kansas and Oklahoma. I think we had something like 3,000 lasts when we were all said and done.
Is it true that an individual customer gets an individual last, and then that's his shape, or is that how you get 3,000 lasts?
That's the funny part, because back in the day, so when we first started, every individual customer got their own last, which is why it was impossible to mail order boots until my grandfather created a solution where you would trace your foot on a piece of paper and then send it in, and then we would make you a custom boot from a mail order catalog. So that was the innovation he made to be able to make boots accessible through mail order. And so the primary part of our business was these custom made boots where each last was made for the individual person until about the 1940s. And that's kind of the same thing with the industry. And about the 1940s is really when you started to have factory sizing. So size 7, size 8, size 9 boots. And I would say that kind of one of the downfalls of our business was that we failed to adopt factory sizing. We thought that people would always want custom made boots. And so companies like Justin and Tony Lama and others were able to adopt factory sizing and expand and become bigger and eat up market share, whereas we became fixated with the idea of continuing to do custom made boots all the way until we lost the factory in the 70s. Primarily, we were trying to focus on custom-made boots. And so, yeah, I would say that a lot of the reason we had so many of them were because a lot of them were for the custom individual person. And then also that idea of the custom individual person is kind of how we ended up shrinking in market size as well.
Well, let's talk about, we kind of we learned a lot from you in a little break here. So kind of maybe we can retrace those steps and talk about how the boots are going to go out and help the public, and what parts of the market and what the overall company's going to provide.
Perfect. Yeah, sorry. I thought when you said on 5, I thought we were kind of...
No, we pushed the button. We should never do that. So yeah, we lost that. So we want to hear it now.
Okay. How we're going to be segmenting in the market, kind of what kind of products we're going to have.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to have two different, we're really focusing on two different product categories to start. One of those is what we call kind of our core product category is boots that are meant to be durable working leathers, kind of what we call our working cowboy and cowgirl boots. Those are boots that are meant to last, that are built with construction that's supposed to stand up to kind of the elements that you'll see on a ranch or a farm, and it can be easily washed off or dusted off and taken to church if you need to. And then on the other end of it, or the other category, we're doing kind of we're doing dress western. So it's more of kind of your higher end boots that you might wear to either a wedding or something of that nature, a little bit more casual, but or something a little bit more casual, but are more premium constructions, exotic leathers, things of that nature.
And where are you going to be marketing these boots? Do you have your own outlet, or do you fit in with other boot sellers?
So we're focused primarily on going through wholesale, so being available at other retailers, not cell phone retailers, but through third-party retailers. Our goal is to be able to support those local retailers in the Western communities, the ones that already have kind of established customer bases, and we're building out kind of our product offering and how we operate in order to be able to support those retailers properly.
How did your family stay hooked with the boot business? They've had their ups and downs, and who was the major person that just stayed interested in the boots when it was kind of headed the wrong way?
You know, after we lost the boot company, because we lost in kind of a bad way, I think a lot of people lost interest. But the one person who I think really, truly loved it and continued to collect all the stuff that she could was my grandmother. She was the one who was always very, very interested in it.
It sounds like everybody had a little nostalgia for it, though, because they had those lasts in their closets, right? So, I mean, they just they had to let it go maybe for the emotional side. You know, if you mentioned some names, Justin Lucchese, Tony Lama, I forget the fourth, but if any brand today, who do you see as the competition level wise? Where are you coming in?
Yeah, our focus is to be best in class, to make a quality product. You know, when I first decided to relaunch the boot company, I put it up on Instagram, and within an hour, I got a message from somebody who said, "Are you relaunching Hyer Boots?" And I messaged him that I'm trying to, and he said, "Well, that's great. If you're going to do it, you got to make sure you make quality boots, because those in the know still think of Hyer as the best boot ever made." And so that was kind of the first telling point that we got to make sure that we're bringing quality, well-made boots to market. And so when I think about who we're going against and the two product categories that we're going against, it's manufacturers that are making really great boots. So everyone from kind of your Rio Mercedes all the way to your Lucchese, to your Anderson Bean and your Randy Watsons. It's kind of in that high quality, well-made boot.
What can you give us a price range for the whole product line, or maybe the two different product categories?
Yeah, so each product category will have kind of different price points, but the core product line will start around $300, move up to around $500 for exotics, and then that premium will start at around $450 and then move up to around $900.
And that's in the world of quality boots. That's pretty much in the market. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that these days, if you're looking for an all leather constructed boot that's durable and meant to last, that's competitive in the market for sure.
What do you think your major challenge will be in jumping back in? What are you going to really concentrate on, and what's your biggest challenge?
Yeah, I mean, every different phase of starting a business kind of has its own challenges, right? The first piece was getting off the ground and getting funding to be able to go after it. And then the second piece of it became trying to figure out exactly what product to make. And that was a bunch of different interviews with retailers and ranches, ranch owners and cowboys and things of that nature to figure out where the holes were in the market. And then it became finding the right manufacturers to get on board. And I think we're fortunate enough that we've been able to do all of those things well. I think we've got an incredible capital partner in a company called Teton Ridge. We've identified some incredible segments in the market, and we've got one of the best factories in Mexico and a great factory in El Paso that are on board with us as well too. So the next part about it becomes being able to market and tell the consumers our story and communicate the quality of our product. So we're kind of onto that transition of now we've got to start selling the product and making sure the customers love it and servicing it properly. So I would say that the marketing and getting the awareness of it is kind of our main battle right now.
Do you have a warehouse? Are you going to stock boots, or do they go straight from your manufacturer straight to the retailer?
Yeah, we have a warehouse. One of the things that we're doing is we're guaranteeing that the retailers that will be in stock so that they can replenish their inventory regularly. And so we're going to be in.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a very big deal. That's been kind of our one of the big learnings from talking to a bunch of these retailers. So we're staying in stock. We've got a warehouse in Dallas where we will be carrying the inventory.
Well, Zach, I mean, it sounds like you're doing it right. Not that I know a darn thing about boot making, but is there when you talk to retailers, and of course that was the right thing to do, clearly. Did they help you find any markets that weren't being served very well that you can slide into, or is it just making the better boot than everybody else?
No, they were incredible. I think that was the most amazing part, right? I think that the one thing I learned from doing this, and I had another business I started before this, is you got to pick up the phone. People want to help, you know? So if you can pick up the phone and communicate to them that you're trying to do something to support them and to help them, they're usually willing to give you some of your time. So I've flown to pretty much every region in the United States to meet with different retailers in those regions, and I've called, and it all started with a phone call for every one of them. So they've all been so incredible in supporting what we're doing and helping us identify what are those opportunities. And that replenishment one that I told you about was a big one, because right now a lot of these retailers, they're buying inventory that's 9 months out, and it's hard for them to operate in business. So I believe that for us, it's about being a partner to those retailers and helping build our business around a way that they can do their business properly. So that idea that we'd rather sell 3 boots to one retailer and make sure that one retailer makes money instead of 3 boots to 3 retailers and none of them are making money.
Well, and I mean, the Hyer story, you discovered that the NFR is still out there, and so you could actually be a point of difference for the right retailer. You get your stuff in the right retailer, and that gives them a leg up on their competitors.
For sure. And we've been blown away by the interest from retailers, not only in the story, but in how we're running our business. And we built out an incredible team. I've been really fortunate to bring people who have long-standing relationships in the industry to help me get this off the ground. We showed up at the industry market in January, and the response has been incredible. We have over 50 different retailers that are jumping on board to be the first ones to get on board. And I think that's for exactly that reason, that they're excited about this point of differentiation. And that's key for us, is finding retailers who are excited about it, because we need them to be telling our story and being advocates for our brand.
How are you going to go about differentiating your brand from the next guy? Are you going to talk about history? Obviously quality, but how are you going to paint that story out there to deliver to the customer?
Yeah, for us, the story of Hyer Boots has always been about innovation. It's always been about building to that core Western consumer, real cowboys and real cowgirls. And so what we're differentiating on is the ability to be premium, best in class, and built for real cowboys and cowgirls, and bringing innovation back into the Western world, but not innovation at lack of quality, which is what I think you've seen a lot of in the market so far, but innovation at really the idea of increasing durability. So we're telling people we're going to be the most versatile boot in the market, and one that they can buy and count on being a quality product.
So that's how you'll advertise, is a quality product for a discerning buyer?
Correct, yeah.
So, Zach, I went to your website, and unless you got some really extensive makeup, you're not very old. And this is.
I'm older.
What's that?
I'm older than I look. I've got a little bit of a baby face.
I'm younger than I look, but so I'm. This is an. You have Dude Ranch has had the same advantage. The world of business has the advantage that when we started out in our business a long time ago, you had to get a brochure or an ad, which we didn't do really in the hands of somebody. And now with the internet and social media and, doing podcasts with Cowboy Up and things like that, the speed of getting out there is certainly accelerated exponentially. But you have so many things to do with nothing but your business sense and a great story. You have nothing else. Everything else you had to create, and that's something.
Yeah, for sure. We've had to do everything from. I tell people this all the time that when you're starting a business, it's like you're wading through 4 feet of mud to get anywhere because everything moves so slow that first time that you're doing it. But we're building out the systems and the operations to be able to move quickly and nimbly. And for me, that all kind of comes down to getting the right people in place. And so I'm young, and I think the one thing that I realize is that there's so much that I can learn from people that have been in that for a long period of time. And we've brought on some experts that are great. I mean, I'm fortunate that at every table I sit in with this company, I'm probably the dumbest guy at every table. But
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah. You'd be shocked at the people that we've got around this. I mean, I'm super fortunate. The ability to be the dumbest person at the table is a blessing. I mean, we got a guy by the name of Louis Russo who was the EVP of Justin Brands and Wrangler for a long period of time, and another guy who was a GM of Lucchese. We've got guys from pretty much every major Western brand that are coming in here and bringing their expertise. And my goal is to be able to, and they're all, the thing that's bringing them over is that they're all excited about a brand that's bringing the passion back to the Western industry. And that's what we're doing. When you talk about those big 5 brands that we talked about, Justin, Nakona, Tony Lama, Lucchese, and Hyer Boots, all of those are no longer owned by the family. They're owned by large corporations that have interests that are far beyond the Western industry. And so what we're doing is bringing it back and building a team that really cares about and is passionate about the Western industry. And the story is just the beginning of it, because that's kind of the piece that everybody can jump onto. But what we're building and how we continue to plan to be stewards to the industry and to the people and things of that nature, that's what I think has people excited, and that's what makes the culture that we're building here so great. And so, like I said, I'm learning every day, but I'm very fortunate to have the people on the team to help make this happen.
So, building a business you described is slogging through the mud. What was the deepest mud? What was the hardest part?
Oh man, if you ask me that any week, it probably changes.
Yeah, I'll bet.
The problem of the week.
Yeah.
But the first one was to get it all started. Originally, I didn't think I wanted to bring on any investors. I thought I wanted to just do this my own, and I took out $100K in credit card debt and started going forward. And we were making a good progress, but really realized quickly that we're going to need to get some investors on board too. So there's that moment of, oh my gosh, and am I going to be able to make this work, or am I going to be in a big hole of debt? And so that was kind of a scary one. And we were really fortunate that we brought on an incredible investor in a company called Teton Ridge, which is really doing a lot of incredible things for the Western industry right now. And it's not only a capital partner, but a partner from a marketing perspective as well. So that was a big one to get through for sure, was figuring out how to get it capitalized.
And if you find the time to talk to us again in 10 years, how do you want to be describing Hyer Boots?
I want people to describe Hyer Boots as the most innovative brand in the business, but also the brand that gets it, the brand that people are passionate about and that they believe is a great representation of the Western industry. not only for the core consumer, but for people who are looking from the outside in on the industry. And so, I think that my goal is that this becomes another generational business the way that it was at the beginning, but one that lasts a lot longer than the third generation of the family. I want to see my grandkids running the business and being a part of it, and I want to restore Hyer Boots to a prominent place within the Western industry.
Do you have something that's going to differentiate your boots from the next guy? When we look at them, will we say, "Oh, there's a set of Hyer Boots"?
Yeah, I believe that the styling and the design on these first pair of boots, you'll be able to see a big difference between us and our competitors for sure. But a lot of what we're doing goes back to those historic stitch patterns of what we had in the past. And as far as our toe shapes and the lasts, we'll have a superior fit. We spent a lot of time perfecting that. And our toe shapes will all be unique as well too. But I think that when you look on a shelf, you'll be able to tell the difference between Hyer Boots and everyone else. And as we move forward, we've got a lot of plans for innovation as well too that are in the works. So those will kind of be other points of differentiation as we go forward.
A little bit of a maybe odd question, but it seems to me that 20 years ago, almost all cowboy boots had a sharp toe on them, and it seems now that 60% of them have a rounded toe and look more like a shoe on the toe than the distinctive pointed toe that used to define a cowboy boot.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's funny because all the lasts that we picked up from the past, so every last that we have from about the 1940s or 40s to 50s were most of the lasts that I was able to uncover, and they're almost all pointed toes. That just used to be the style back in the day. Nowadays, everything's square. The majority of the market's square toe.
Yeah, and I don't. I wore some square-toed boots because I needed to for some photo shoots, and for somebody who's ridden virtually my whole life, and I'd slip over and it impacted my ability to catch the stirrup. It was kind of, it's not that you can't do it, but it was odd. Well, we've run out of time, and I just, the retailers aren't out there yet, I suspect, but people are going to be interested in Hyer Boots, and then go to Hyer Boots, HYER Boots.com. Is that correct website name?
Yeah, correct. HyerBoots.com is our website, our Instagram, and all of our socials, all the way from YouTube to Instagram and everything in between is all at Hyer Boots or HyerBoots.com. And like I said, our products will start to be available in May. And we'll have limited releases of those products available from May to July, and then in August we'll be in retailers. But if people are interested in getting in on kind of those first limited releases of products, you can sign up on our website, and you'll be the first to know as those products come in. And then also you'll be the first to know when retailers and things in your area are carrying Hyer Boots. So what we say is follow us on Instagram to watch the story. We're tracking kind of every piece of bringing it back, from interviewing my grandmother to going down to Leon and remaking the last. All of that story kind of lives on our Instagram. And then our website is where people can go to purchase and to get access to those early release products.
Zach, it's just been great to have you on. I've been fascinated with Hyer story and what you have, where you are, what you're doing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Hyer Boots, HYER Boots.com, and people can, you said, sign up to get some boots, and they can join Teddy Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower, Clark Gable, Gene Autry, Buffalo Bill, and if you're a bad boy, Billy the Kid. And I mean, that's wow. What a story.
Lineup.
So this is great. Zach, thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast.
Well, another fascinating episode of the Cowboy Up podcast, and coming to you from the White Stallion Ranch in Tucson, Arizona. Well, I'm hearing that the weather outside is delightfully frightful in some parts of our country, but you know, spring is a great time to be in southern Arizona with great weather, cactus blooming, and spring break making a visit possible. Now, it's also high season, so finding availability can be a bit tricky. However, the True Ranch Collection offers 4 Arizona ranch options. First of all, White Stallion Ranch, where it all started for the True family 57 years ago, and the most upscale Tombstone Monument Ranch and Cattle Company. That's right, just outside the west's most iconic town of Tombstone, Arizona. Now, this is also an authentic and historic cattle ranch. Rancho de la Osa on the border with Mexico, with more history than can be told here. And then there's the K.L. Bar Ranch, just outside the old mining town of Wickenburg, Arizona. And then K.L. Bar is the smallest of the ranches, and it is indeed the oldest Arizona running dude ranch, starting in 1916. Fascinating stories and wonderful accommodations. And to learn more about these ranches, here we go. www.trueranchcollection.com. www.trueranchcollection.com. A wonderful time of the year to come to southern Arizona, and we'll see you here.
You know, Alan, my great-grandfather had 1,600 mules in a livery business in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And it was the biggest one in the Rocky Mountains, and then the railroads came. And he didn't have a livery business anymore, and at least certainly not the magnitude that he did. And I was thinking of him as I was thinking of the Hyer family, and I thought, you know, this is a guy who invented the cowboy boot. He put the heel on, he put the pull straps, put the pointy toe, which I always appreciate. They don't have to be too pointy, but to get in that stirrup. And here he is. He introduces mail order for custom boots, and he introduces assembly line for boots, which apparently was new at the time. It was 1880s or 90s maybe for that. But then he missed one thing, and he missed factory sizing, and the company goes away. And Zach's going to bring it back, and you talk about he wants to be innovative, and that's his number one thing, and he's right.
I agree.
And that's a wrap from the West, where history is made every day. A Western shout out to Stan Huston's production company. Hey, if you love us or like us, give us a rating on Apple. Big Cowboy appreciation for doing so. And join us next time when the Cowboys chat with cutting horse trainer Barbara Schulte. Until then, I'm Lynn Weezy Sneed, reminding you to stand tall and ride safe.
Storm rolled in from the western sky. 2,000 head of steers took flight. Good night paid those boys to ride, and by damn they would, though some might die. Don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Tradition lives, and it's here to stay. 100 years and growing strong today. So don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. She's 10 years old on a stout bay horse. 300 years they guide her course from the Spanish quest say goodbye.
Don't say goodbye
to the cowboy way.
To the cowboy way.
Tradition lives, and it's here to stay. 100 years ago and strong today. So don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Rawhide and steel, hooves and horns, legacy to the yet unborn. A code that comes from a hard-lived life. Your destiny when you're born to ride. Don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Tradition lives, and it's here to stay. 100 years and going strong today. So don't say goodbye to the cowboy way. Don't say goodbye.
Don't say goodbye
to the cowboy way.
And again, a tip of the hat to Jim Jones and his posse for our favorite song, Don't Say Goodbye to the Cowboy Way.